Okay, well, we can get started. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. On behalf of the Kannada Muslim Association, I'd like to welcome you to tonight's Meet and Tea. I'm your host, Sameena Khan, and tonight's program is going to be amazing. The discussion this evening is dedicated to our dear friend and sister, Christina. She taught and inspired several sisters about couponing. The art and skill in couponing and price matching has literally helped people save hundreds of dollars. And although the art of couponing has slowed down since the onset of COVID, Christina says there are still ways to save. And as the saying goes, a penny saved is a penny earned. So investing smart and from an Islamic lens is an evolving skill and art. So here to show us how it's done and how to start off on the right foot is what we have in store for you tonight. So please join me in welcoming our guests. We are blessed to have Sister Ayesha and Sister Zainab as our panelists. Welcome to you both. Sister Zainab, she is a platinum relationship manager at Questrade since April 2020. She has been trading actively for 4 months, and she has a thorough understanding of Questrade and other platforms which she uses to educate and empower women who are investing or interested in investing with Questrade or any other brokerage. Sister Ayesha, she's a process specialist for Ontario Power Generation. She's been trading for 3 years, and she has spearheaded several investing groups. She created these communities to provide a platform for Muslim sisters to share their knowledge and experience so they can learn from each other. Given their diverse experiences, knowledge, and tips for smart investing, and given the limited time we have, let's focus the time with our panelists tonight so that you as the audience will have plenty of practical advice and tips to help you start to invest in the stock market. So Ayesha, Zainab, and I would like to cover all the basic essentials that you need to be a successful trader. So let's dive in with some inspiration. So what inspired us to get into stocks and trading in the stock market in the first place? So in terms of inspiration, I was 16 years old when I first got into stocks, learning about it in school. And although I was born and raised in Hamilton to Hyderabadi Indian parents, we never talked about stocks ever at home or even in our social circles. With whatever little I learned from, delivering newspapers and earning from those, jobs on the side, I would just take a small portion so that I would feel so happy and proud of being a shareholder in an actual company. And as a Muslim kid, I was so happy because I would give away all the interest in my bank account, and I never really saw any growth. Whereas in my stock account, I would receive dividends, which would be like an allowance for me. So plus I could keep the earnings so my wealth would actually grow. And in those days, when I started as a teenager in the stock market, we didn't have computers or the internet. So I used to take the city bus all the way downtown just to review annual reports to make sure that the companies that I invested in were really good. So it was super important for me to strategize my choice of stocks so that I could afford them and they made sense to me ethically. And so that's what I've kept up until today as a hobby. So let's start off with what actually inspired our guests. So Sister Ayesha, what inspired you to get into stocks?
Assalamu alaikum, Sameena. First of all, I'd like to say Jazakallah for inviting us to the panel. We're very excited to be part of this, and inshallah, we'll be sharing some pointers and tips today. What inspired me was, well, I'd always been interested in the stock market, listening to the headlines on the news, that Dow Jones is up so many points and the S&P is down so many points. But a few years ago, I was working with a group of people, and my coworkers, male coworkers, would get together at breaks and they'd discuss the stocks that they'd been invested in and how much money they were making and what was hot and happening. And it almost seemed like a boys' club. So although I was interested, I always thought it was like a man's thing to do. But it wasn't until one of my girlfriends, I found out that she was an active trader, that she actually inspired me. Once I saw that I thought if she can do it, I can do it too. So I started doing the research and I started educating myself. And it took me a good year before I actually felt comfortable to dive in. So I finally took the plunge. I opened my trading account and I started trading. And I've never looked back since, alhamdulillah.
And how about you, Sister Zainab? What inspired you to get into stocks?
Alaikum, Sister Sameena. Thank you so much for having us here today. I'm very excited. So I wanted to become financially independent. I didn't want my paycheck to limit my income. I already had exposure to the stock market because my mom and my brother were already invested. And once I started working at Questrade and gaining insight and knowledge, I saw the back-end process of these transactions, which gave me the confidence that my money would be as safe as it would be in my bank account. And that's when I started trading.
very inspirational and very practical too. In our lives, we sometimes, look at how much money we have, what can we do with it? And so let's take a hypothetical scenario because we want to be as practical for our guests who are watching us and who are with us tonight. So let's pretend we have this brother, Omar. So Omar has $500 and he's looking to invest it. So what should he take into consideration? So let's look at a few questions around this. And so let's start with Zainab. So Zainab, who can invest and how old would Omar have to be?
So depending on what province Omar is in, he'd have to be either 18 or 19 years old. So for Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, Prince Edward Island, Quebec, and Saskatchewan, he'd have to be 18 years old. And if he's from any of the other provinces, then he would have to be 19 years old.
Okay, great. And I know that when we're trading in general, or just starting to think about trading, there's a certain mindset or character traits that people really should have to be successful traders. So Ayesha, in your thoughts, what kind of mindset or character traits should Omar have to be a successful trader?
I think the first and foremost, he would need to be disciplined. He would also need to have a lot of patience. He's going to invest his money, but nothing's going to happen overnight. He's going to have to be patient and watch it grow over time. And he will have to be disciplined where he's going to come up with a plan. If he's planning on buying the stock, he's going to plan an entry point where if the stock, say, is at between $10.20 and $10.50, that's my entry point. And at the same time, before he even buys the stock, he's going to decide on his exit point. When this stock becomes 11.30 to 11.50, I'll exit, inshallah, depending on if the stock goes uptrend or downtrend. And he will have to try to stick to that. That's where the discipline will come in. And he'll also need to have a certain level of risk tolerance because he is putting his money into this. There's no guarantees that it will grow. He could. So he needs to understand that before going in that this is also a possibility.
Well, and risk is huge, right? Like I know that even as a kid starting off in the stock market, I knew that it means that all of the money that I've put in there, I have to pretend that I've already parted away with it. So you have to have this sense that you don't have that money anymore. And, even as a Muslim, I guess, we have this sense that we are only shepherds for the money and the wealth that we have. So, we try to manage it as best as we can. And of course, as well, knowing that it's in the stock market and not part of our household expenses, it's all eligible for zakat. So thinking about, your $500 and whatever else you've gained after a portion of, I think it's, after about a year, you need to make sure that your principal plus whatever gains you've made, you've paid 2.5% of zakat on that. So that's a really great point. So now when it comes to actually some options now, so Omar has a sense that he's willing to part with that money. He's willing to be disciplined and patient with the long-term kind of investing. What else does he need to have when it comes to investing? Like, what are the options that he has to have?
Okay, so some of the options that Omar can invest in are stocks, ETFs, mutual funds, bonds. Those are the main ones. So we're going to be talking about the stocks and the ETFs mainly today. So the stock is a security. Stocks are securities that represent an ownership share in one company, whereas an ETF is a collection of more than one stock that is purchased at one price. Someone may choose to trade an ETF over a stock because you're not relying on the success of one company alone. And both ETFs and stocks are traded very similarly through your broker. And we'll be discussing long-term, short-term, and dividend yielding stocks as well.
Okay, now dividends are actually my favorite types of stocks because, it's like going back to that feeling like, oh, you get a little bit of an allowance from the company, but it's not really called an allowance. It is a dividend. So, profits are shared from the different corporations. Some of them, give their dividends every quarter, some of them by month, and sometimes even never. If they're not doing well, they won't give out those dividends. And so even in terms of why corporations offer dividends, like it's like a loyalty program, just like you have like Shoppers Drug Mart or like, Superstore, like you have those point systems. So it's like a loyalty, it's like a thank you from the different companies. Okay, so over to you, Ayesha. So when can Omar trade?
Omar can basically trade during regular market hours, which in North America are from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And some brokerages actually offer extended market hours, which vary from 4 a.m. to 8 p.m.
All right. So what tools would he need to accommodate those trades?
So Omar would need a broker to place his trades. Some of the popular Canadian brokers are Wealthsimple and Questrade. I'm sure all of you have heard of those. Wealthsimple is a great broker for new traders because they are a commission-free broker. However, they do charge you a fee when you exchange your funds when you buy and sell U.S. securities. Questrade has lower commissions than your big banks, and you can hold both U.S. and Canadian dollars within one account. So if you're buying and selling U.S. securities, your money is converted over the one time, and then it just stays within that account, and both of the currencies can be held in the same account. And alternatively, Omar can also make a trading account with his bank.
Okay, so I know like my personal experience has been, with Questrade only because of the flexibility of dealing with both US and Canadian stocks. So let's say, for example, Zainab, he's chosen his broker. Let's say he chooses Questrade. So what else would he need to consider?
Okay, so at this point, he would need to consider what type of trading he's planning on doing and what account type would best fit that. So he has a few options, the main ones being TFSA, RRSP, RESP, and margin accounts. So the TFSA account is a tax-free savings account. You have the benefit of tax-free gains. Depending on how old you are and how long you've been a Canadian resident, you may have a lot of contribution room. This accumulates whether you have a TFSA account or you don't, and you can find out what that contribution room is from your CRA account. CRA does have day trading rules in place, and you may be taxed on 100% of your gains. So you may want to look into this before you decide what kind of trading you're planning on doing. Omar can also trade in an RRSP account, which is a registered retirement savings account. You can reduce your tax bracket by making deposits. You can trade as much as you'd like. You can also make tax-free withdrawals as a first-time home buyer if you're planning on going back to school. There's also a contribution room for your RSP account based on your income. You can also find this information on your CRA account. And then you have the RESP account. So if Omar has children, he can enroll in different grant programs like the Canadian Education Savings Grant, and the government will match your contributions 20% up to $500 per child per year. People will usually make safe long-term investments in this account because you don't want to invest away your children's education money.
Well, that's it, right? Like, so out of those different, options you've mentioned, my personal experience has been like to trade in a TFSA account, and that's always worked well for me. But, since COVID, so what I did was I saw that the market was really depressed and it was a great time to buy stocks. So I ended up buying like a lot of stocks at the time that COVID, set in. But now with the economy getting kind of jittery, I decided, okay, well, and there's some other reasons too we'll get into later, but I decided to sell all of my stocks this past week. So, in doing that though, I'm just curious if CRA would consider that like long enough to be considered as part of the TFSA, or like, would that be considered taxable? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly how the criteria works, but there is a certain point where if you're trading a lot and you're making a lot of money in your account, CRA may consider that as income and tax you on 100% of the profits instead of having those tax-free gains. So if you are planning on doing frequent trades, then you should do it in an account like an RRSP account or a margin account, where there aren't any restrictions. And like the margin account, you have the ability to trade as much as you'd like. There are no restrictions on withdrawals or deposits, but you know that you're going to be taxed on 50% of the gains. So if you're planning on trading a lot, you'd rather take the risk. You don't want to take the risk of being taxed on the full amount when you can just stick to 50% of the profits being taxed. And in the margin account, you also have the ability to trade stocks like the OTC or pink sheets, which are penny stocks that you're not allowed to hold in a registered account. And those are stocks that are generally cheaper.
Okay, and then you also mentioned the RESP, so the Registered Education Savings Plan. So like you mentioned, let's say, for example, Omar does have kids and he's investing in stocks and he's got the RESP account. So what happens, and especially in a jittery economy that we're in, like, for example, we're heading into now, what happens if that principal of the $500 and maybe he loses some of that? What happens if he needs to withdraw it for his kids?
Yeah, so if he decides to trade and he loses, so for example, he loses all of his money, the grants were paid from the government for education purposes. So if those grants are not being added towards your children's education, then the government is going to take back those grants, leaving your account in a negative balance. So at that point, you'd owe your broker the amount of grants that you were paid in the account.
Okay, that's great to know. Alrighty, so now that Omar has all of his accounts settled, like let's say, for example, he opens a TFSA, for his trading account. So Ayesha, let's say he's opened that account, everything looks good to go. What next?
So he has to now decide whether he wants to do long-term trading or short-term trading. Since he's in a TFSA account, it would be more advisable for him to do long-term trading. So the difference between long-term and short-term is, for long-term, he will buy his stocks, a solid company, he will buy them and he will basically forget about them for a few years. He can periodically check on what's happening with the stock, what's happening with the company, making sure everything's copacetic, but he won't be selling them anytime soon. Whereas short-term trading, which he would advisable to do in an RSP or a margin account, where there'd be more volume of trades. So those he will be looking at shorter terms, basically. So a company maybe that has more fluctuation in the stock price, where he gets an opportunity to get in and get out and make some quick money. So those are his two options. Yeah, and it also depends on how much time he's willing to invest. If he has the time and he's interested on doing short-term trades, where he'll be doing a lot of research throughout, say on the weekend, he'll be researching companies, deciding which company he wants to get into. He'll set the entry point, he'll set the exit point, and he'll be monitoring charts. So that's a technical analysis, where the long-term, he'll be doing more of a fundamental analysis, where he's looking at the company, how solid is the company, how good is the product or the services they're providing, what has the trend been, what's the outlook for the company, how's the management team, is it an experienced management team, how heavy is the insider shareholding, how heavy is institutional shareholding, giving confidence in the company. And that tells him, okay, I can invest in this company, I know my money is safe, they're not going bankrupt anytime soon. So either short-term or long-term, he will need to do some fundamental analysis. Whereas in day trading, he's basically just looking at a chart. He's looking at the peaks and the drops. He's looking for a quick entry point and he's looking for a quick exit point. But I wouldn't suggest that for Omar, because he will need he'll need to learn how to analyze technically. So I think for Omar, long-term trading would be a good fit.
Okay, so that sounds so amazing, right? For a beginner, to hear all the theory, and it is very intricate, and it is an art. So he hears all of those awesome options. He set up his account and he's thinking about all those different things that you've mentioned about long-term and short-term trading. Now he's trying to figure out what kind of stocks should he actually choose. So based on some of the previous discussions that the three of us had before this show, and also from my own personal experience as well, it's always a good choice to consider companies that you're familiar with or that you truly are ethically aligned with. So let's say, for example, Omar is thinking about 4 companies. Okay, so he starts his day, he's going to think about the companies that he's usually, supporting in terms of his own expenses. So he starts his day brushing his teeth. He's using Colgate toothpaste. So Colgate, the toothpaste company, it's called Colgate Palmolive. And so, he's using that. Let's say his favorite shoes, he's got a pair of Nikes, and he knows that Nike is a company, it's publicly traded, or maybe he doesn't know, he's just going to look it up. And all of these things are available now at our fingertips, so he'll look that up. Let's say, for example, although he's a very simple fellow, one day he would love to own a Tesla. So, and Tesla is one of the cool stocks and one of the cool things that people are talking about. So let's talk about Tesla. And then how about Enbridge Gas? He's somebody who obviously lives in a house here in Ottawa, and, he's got a contract with Enbridge Gas for oil and gas. So let's go with that. So Ayesha, what are your thoughts? What would be the first step if he's considering Colgate Palmolive, Nike, Tesla, and Enbridge Gas?
Well, the first thing as a Muslim, what we would check is to make sure the stock is Sharia compliant. And he will do that by checking, and there are a couple of options for apps. There's Zoya, which is a free, that offers a free and a paid subscription. And there's also Islamically that offers a paid subscription. So he'll basically look for his ticker in a stock trading app or online or on the website. And he will put that ticker into the Zoya app, and it will basically tell him whether it's compliant or not.
Okay, so when something is like Sharia compliant or not, like how really can you check? So you mentioned there's the Zoya app, and then the other one, what was it called? You said
Islamic.
Islamically. Okay, so in Islamically, just if you could give the spelling of that, just for our audience.
So it's Islamicly.
And Zoya.
Zoya.
Okay, so from what I understood, so Zoya is a free app. And so you just type in, like you called it a ticker, but it's basically just the stock code. So for Colgate, it's CL. So you would type in, you'd get the Zoya app, and then you would type in CL. Oh, look at that. Zainab's got it right there. So she's got the stock price right there, $74.44. And underneath it says it is Sharia compliant. Well, that's good news. Okay. All right. So we know that that one's good. So that's Colgate. And so how about Nike? Nike is running at $132.04 per share. And is it Sharia compliant? Yes, it is Sharia compliant. Okay, that's good. Tesla, let's see. So Tesla, what's the code for Tesla?
TSLA.
Okay. Okay, that's easy. Oh, wow. Okay, wow. Oh, he doesn't have money for that. $621.44 a share, and it is Sharia compliant. Okay, that's good. And then what about oil and gas with the Enbridge? Zoya says $35.20.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, not compliant. Okay. Now, what exactly are we checking, Ayesha? Like if for a business to be non-Sharia compliant, like what do you know, like what kind of screens that they're using to actually define that?
So
Because in
Zoya,
my view, it should be like, okay, I'm not dealing with alcohol, pork products, lottery, all those, the haram things. So what else are they using?
so there, Zoya is basically following the AAOIFI, the Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financing Institutions. They have a four-part screening process. So they have two business screenings and two finance screenings. The first one is what you mentioned, is the overall business halal. So are they not selling alcohol, gambling, etc.? The second business screen is any other non-halal subsidiary or interest income that is not greater than 5%. So any of those non-halal income can't exceed 5%. And then the finance screens or the company's debt compliance is no greater than 30 to 33%. So basically they'd be paying interest on that. Or the company's cash total, which is cash over market cap, is no greater than 30 to 33%. So those are done in the background. You just put it in your app. And actually people do manual screening because these apps are updated every quarter. So things may change within that time frame. So if you're really bent on finding out in that time, if you want to see if it's compliant, you can actually do manual calculations as well.
Okay, that's cool. Now, Zainab, earlier you were showing us the tickers and, if they're Sharia compliant or not. So I'm curious, like, let's say, for example, we type in one, and I don't know what they have or don't have because I'm still new to that, but what happens if there's a ticker that just doesn't show up on that app?
I know that Islamically has an option where you can actually request them to act. I'm not quite sure on how soon they get back to you or how frequent they check that, but I know that is an option.
Okay, great. All right, so Ayesha, over to you now. So what strategies would Umar need to use for those trades?
So his basic strategy is buy low, sell high. That's what he's aiming to do. And obviously not every trade is going to go that way, but as long as the gains are greater than his losses, he's on a good track. Again, keeping in mind that things could go south, and then things do pick up as well, like we've been seeing in the last couple of weeks in the market. Things have been pretty low, but when I look at my own experience, when COVID hit, everything dropped, and some of my stocks I sold off because I thought, oh my God, what's going to happen? It was I was fairly new as well, and although it worked out for me, I bought when they started going down again. But looking back in hindsight, if I had just not even sold all my stocks, everything came back up. So that's the thing with the stock market. It may dip, but don't panic, don't sell. And inshallah, it will come back in time. Like I said, patience and discipline are key.
Okay, so thinking of those concepts of, patience and discipline, and then each of those four tickers, I'm wondering, Zainab, if we could take a look at what those charts are. So that's probably like the meat of all the thinking behind all the stocks, and deciding before you actually purchase the stock to really go through those charts. So I'm wondering, could we take a moment? I guess we do have a few minutes. I'm wondering if we could take a moment to take a look at those charts. Are we able to do that?
Yes. Just going to
Okay.
start a screen share here.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so here we have the first one that we discussed, which is Colgate-Palmolive. And if you go to Yahoo Finance, which is the place that I go to see the charts, you can just search in the name of the company or the ticker symbol if you know, and you just scroll down and you have all of this information. You also have a chart here. If you could click on it, it'll expand and you can look at different time ranges. So if you want to look at what was happening with the stock in the last year, you can take a look there. Just drag it over. And here, what you would do is if you're interested in investing in this stock, then you would take a look at the movements when you see the large dips like this, or you see the spikes, like was there something going on with the company? Did they release news? What's going on? What caused this? And that way you have an understanding of what makes this stock move. So if it's an earnings report, then maybe you want to get into the stock before the next earnings report comes out. So this is for Colgate-Palmolive. And then we have one for Nike, and then depending on how long the stock has been around, you'll have more and more information. I believe Nike goes back to 1970 something. Let's take a look here. Yeah, looks like 1980. So there's a lot of movement here.
And what was the price in 1980? What did it start at?
Let's see. It started at 18 cents.
Okay, so if somebody invested in Nike in 1980, 1920, 30 years later, 40 years, is that 40 years? 40 years later, they would be at, which today's price is $132. So like you see those dips, but then you also see the incline. So eventually old stocks, inshallah, if they're doing well, they have a good business model, they do rise. And that again, you do your fundamental analysis and you make sure that it's a good, solid company you're investing in.
And this is for Tesla. So you can see that it was trading at around $3 and it opened at $3.80. And now today it's trading at $600. It recently reached over $800 right there, $880, 84. So that's very high, but then you see the dip here. This is possibly correction, the market correcting.
Yeah. But unfortunately for Omar, he doesn't have enough stock. This is US dollars and he has 500 Canadian. So he's going to have to build on his $500 to inshallah buy a Tesla or maybe even a Tesla in the future.
Is there a way to know how dip is going to go from 620? Can it go more than 600? Is there a way to know the support for Tesla?
You can check support and resistance lines. I think that would be a little difficult right now because everything is just going down. This would be a good time to buy, or maybe even watch for it to drop some more before you even buy. But there are indicators in here that you can choose where you're looking at RSIs or moving averages or support lines and resistance lines. That's where you can study charts and learn all those things.
But it's been dropping for 3 weeks now, so I don't know how long will it keep dropping.
Nobody knows that, right? That would be nice to know.
Is it good to do self-directed investment, or should hire somebody to do your investing?
So it completely depends how comfortable you are. If you're comfortable with investing your own money or you want to start off with a small amount, when people ask me like, how much money should I start off with? I always say, start off with an amount that you're comfortable with losing because you're new, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we would all be making a lot of money if we knew where the market was moving. But if you're comfortable with making, you can also choose to do both. You can invest a larger amount of money in a portfolio. You have to do your research and see what the gains and the losses, the percentages, and see what you're comfortable with, and then do a part of your portfolio through there. And then you can also invest your own money if you want to get comfortable with the stock market, and hopefully in the future decide to just have your entire portfolio in self-directed, then you can move towards that as well. It just depends on your comfort level.
Also, is it good to keep long-term investment, or keep the stocks for a long time, or just day trading or that type of thing? So which is better?
It depends on what you're comfortable with. Do you have the time to spend? Do you have, can you build on your technical analysis skills to feel comfortable to day trade? Or maybe you're more comfortable with just parking it in a good company and just watching it grow without doing anything. It's a personal thing, right? Depends on each individual.
And suppose you find a real good choice. So is it good to invest all of that in that one, or just buy different stocks?
It's always a good idea to diversify. You don't want to put all your chickens in one basket, basically. You don't know where the company is going. So it's always, I use the 10% rule. I try to keep 10 different kinds of stocks in my portfolio. So at any given day, some of them will be up, but some of them will be down, but some of them will be up. So it's kind of like, okay, yeah, these are down, but these are up. So you're not relying on one company to do that. And like Zainab had mentioned earlier, that you also have the option of ETFs, where you're just buying it as a bulk, but you're invested in several different companies. So again, you're not relying on that one company.
So I'll just ask if everybody could just hold on to their questions for just a few more minutes, because what we're going to do is we're going to tie up these last 4 charts, and then we'll provide our final recommendations for this brother Omar, and then we have a lovely treat for the whole community from our dear panelists, and then we're going to have the questions and answers. So Zainab, did we want to, well, I can mention this, that I mean, it's based on the Tesla stock chart there's no way that Omar can afford it. As Ayesha said, this is something that's going to have to wait until he's able to afford it. The Nike is something that he could potentially afford, along with the Colgate. Enbridge, we didn't take a look at Enbridge. Oh, that's only because it's non-Sharia compliant. Okay, that's right. Okay, so on that note, so basically from the math there, what are your thoughts on how many shares he could buy if we had the $500?
So it looks like he can buy 2 shares of Nike and 3 shares of Colgate Palmolive.
Okay, and then in terms of dividends, I know that Colgate Palmolive, they give dividends, or maybe they don't. Actually, that was a few years back, so I didn't check them in preparation for the show. But we could do a quick check if we went to Yahoo Finance CL, and I don't know, are you able to do that check?
Yeah, so on the chart, let me just do a quick screen share for this.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Okay. So on the screen, on this chart right here, if you zoom out, you'll see all of these Ds, and these are all dividends. So if you scroll in a little closer, you'll see when it looks like it's paid out on a monthly basis. And you might even get, okay, so it looks like the yield would be, so you'll get more information through there. And you can also take a look in your Questrade account. So there's a research tab, and if you select the ticker symbol and you change your date range, it'll give you all the information on when the ex-dividend dates are, when the pay dates are, so when you should be holding the stock in order to receive the dividend, and how much you would be receiving for that dividend. Okay,
that's fantastic. So that's great advice for Omar, because I guess he's going to get dividends. He's going to be all happy every month with a little extra bit that he can actually keep. That's good. All right. So are we ready for the grand finale? Zainab, what are your thoughts?
Yes, so this is with regard to a document. So my sister Ayesha and I have created an Investing 101 document that mentions a lot of the information that we went over today. So the different account types, the type of investments that you can do, kind of like a step-by-step on where to start. and more information. It covers the basics. So we're going to be sharing that resource with all of you, and hopefully, inshallah, all of you can benefit from it.
And on that note, mashallah, it's not easy for, collecting all of that information. And as I mentioned before, like I've been trading stocks for 30 years. And when I saw that document, I have to say, like, mashallah, it's a really, really great resource. And seriously, like, I wish that at even at this age that I could just take advantage of that. I would love to look into that further for sure. But I would ask, on behalf of the Canada Muslim Association, given the kindness and generosity that you've prepared all of this information, sisters Ayesha and Zainab, if those who consult this document, if they could please make a donation to the Canada Muslim Association, because honestly, it's really, really helpful. And even in terms of all the different platforms available to us as Canadians, and the types of commissions, the pros and cons. I mean, that takes like hours and days and a lot of time to put together. And although I know that you both said that you've only been trading actively for a few, months or a few years, honestly, like I've been trading, like I said, for 30 years, and I never knew some of those things. I only found out only after speaking to you that Wealthsimple has 0 fees. So I'm like, okay, now I'm going to look at that for my for my Canadian stock. So I want to thank you so much. And there's a sister, Yasmin. I don't know how to check the chat, but oh well, anyway. So there was a sister, Yasmin, that I just saw for a minute, just asking if she could share the document. And I think if we were to share it in the chat, Sister Zainab, then I guess people can share the document as long as you ask them to, please give a donation to the KMA if you can. It's a great organization, and alhamdulillah. Did you want to say anything else about the document itself, Sister Ayesha or Sister Zainab?
I think you've pretty much covered it all.
Okay.
And I have linked it into the chat. So if anyone would like the link to it, you can just pop open the chat and you'll see it there.
Okay, great. That's wonderful. And perhaps, did we have any final words? I do want to say, though, just some parting words about the money. Of course, you go into stocks and trading to make a little bit of extra money if you can. I mean, it's all about your intentions too, that you want to do some, extra buying on the side. And just keep in mind too, money cannot buy happiness, but it can certainly buy some nice presents. So, keep that in mind. And it can also, give some nice support for our communities, such as the KMA and all the wonderful things that it's doing. Sajjad Ashraf says, CL pays quarterly dividends. Okay, great. Yeah, and that's another thing too, like companies can change the frequencies of their dividends. I noticed, like, after COVID too, some of the companies that I invested in, some of them just decided not to even give any dividends out. And then, of course, there are some that might change from monthly to quarterly. Oh, okay. So somebody's posted something about halal ETFs. Do we want to talk about ETFs before we open up questions and answers, or do we just want to get to the questions? I don't know. What are your thoughts, Zainab and Ayesha?
I think we've covered the ETFs.
You put the halal, Zainab just posted the halal ETFs in the chat.
Yeah, those are some of the halal ones that I know of. So I've listed those.
Okay, and again, just for everybody's reference about ETFs, I know we mentioned it very briefly. We touched on it, just saying that it's a diversified group of stocks. And before I knew about Sharia-compliant stocks, like I just knew that ETFs in general, they're diverse and could have different themes, like environmentally friendly themes, or oil and gas or telecommunications. And so having ETFs that are halal and kind of screened, are they screened by Zoya? Like who screens these? Is it that Islamic AOIO, whatever?
They're a group of 3 brothers, I think, and they have an imam, I think, Sheikh Joe Bedford, who they consult for the compliance. And if they are, say, for example, they have Apple in their ETFs, which is questionable, I think maybe because of the finance, so they actually purify the stock before they actually they put it in the ETF. So you don't have to worry about anything with the halal ETF. It's just, you just buy it and you just sit on it.
Okay, so I don't know how to check the questions, but I can see like a whole bunch pop up. Zainab or Ayesha, are you able to see those questions?
So I see some questions here. Do you do short stock trading or just long? I do just long. The general consensus is that short stock trading is not Sharia compliant.
So is that short term or is that shorting the stock? They're two different things, right?
So longing would be buying a stock, shorting would be selling the stock before you buy it. So if you wanted to clarify that, just so we provide you with the accurate information, shorting the stock, yeah. So the general consensus is that it's not Sharia compliant to short a stock. And then how are we taxed on US stocks if you decide to withdraw from a TFSA account? You have the ability to withdraw US dollars. The broker will use the conversion rate at that time to determine what the Canadian equivalent is for that. For US stocks that you hold, if you receive dividends for it, as a Canadian resident, there's a non-resident withholding tax, which is taxed at 15%. If you're not a resident, then you're taxed at 30%. That's taxed before it is deposited into your account.
That's awesome. Thank you. Were there any other questions in the chat? I can't see. Oh, yes, I can see them now. Okay, hang on, let's go back up to the top. Oh, okay, somebody had a question that from Manal at 8:40. She has an account with Wealth Simple. She wants to invest in stocks that give dividends. What are the best stocks to invest in? Please provide me the names of these stocks. Aha, okay. Oh, and then Brother Mahmoud wrote, my first 50,000. My first 50,000 what, Brother Mahmoud? I don't know what that is. Is that meant to be?
Oh, it's the website, I think, myfirst50,000.com.
Oh, okay. Subscribe to Dividend Girl. She's really good with Canadian dividend investment. Okay. But then again, I guess we're also trying to apply a Sharia compliant kind of lens to all of these, right? Like, I know that, see, initially when I first got into stocks, I always thought, okay, well, I'm going to try and avoid all those ones that have the haram in them. And then now with these additional added layers, I think it's really great if we do have a resource somewhere at some point that would allow us to have dividend yielding stocks that are Canadian and, you know, Sharia compliant. So I'm not sure if our Ummah in Canada is right there yet. I think we're almost at the brink of it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sister Zainab and Ayesha. I'm not sure if there's any company or any like dividend halal guy that or girl who has that posted on any site.
I haven't come across anything. There might be. Somebody mentioned Sajjad Ashraf talks about Athena. I believe that they are still in phase 2 of their app and it's not available to the public the last time I checked. So that's another one we could either look into or look forward to, Athena, along with the Nistia.
How do you spell that one? Sorry.
So Athina, and Brother Sajjad has also posted a link to it.
Oh, okay. Let's see what else we have in here. Will you share the PDF in the end? Yes, Uruj, the PDF, I think it is posted now, right, Zainab?
Yes, I can post it again. It may get lost in the conversation here. So I'll just do that right now.
Thank you.
No problem. Then we have some more questions. There is, does Questrade give annual loss or profit if you sell your stocks or options for tax purposes? Yeah, so depending on what tax slips you require for your account, they'll be available on your Questrade account under your reports and tax slips. And the tax slips range, availability ranges from February 28th, March, and April. So between February and April, all of your tax slips will be available for your accounts. And is it worth trading in US stocks considering the broker will use their conversion rate when buying and selling? I assume the rate will be higher than the actual value. So it depends on what broker you choose to go with. With Wealth Simple, you need to take into consideration that they're going to charge you 1.5% both when you're buying and selling. So your profit needs to exceed that amount so that you're actually making money. With Questrade, your money is converted over just once. And then when you're selling your stocks, it goes back into your US cash and you can continue to trade. So again, depending on how much you're planning on trading, you would need to take a look at how much conversion you're paying. So with Questrade, the general rate is 199 pips, which is 1.99 cents on every Canadian dollar, which is approximately 2%. So it converts over your money and then you just trade and then you sell. So that conversion, the spread fee that you're paying, your profits need to exceed that. And you also need to take into consideration the commissions that you're paying.
Okay, so Ayesha and Zainab, there were a couple of questions, one from YouTube, or actually a couple from YouTube's. One is, how do you purify your shares from interest? And is RSP halal?
So I believe Islamically has an option to purify your stock. Don't quote me on that, I'm not quite sure, but I did hear something along those lines. Is RRSP halal? So RRSP is basically a type of account. So what you buy in that would then be compliant or non-compliant. So RRSP in and of itself is halal, yes.
And then is Wealthsimple worth using for your US stocks trading? If you're doing a very small amount of purchase, like the value of your trades are very small, as long as that your profits are exceeding your conversion fees. So whether it's larger, whether it's a big trade or a small trade, if you're trading larger value trades, then Questrade would be another better option, or even a bank would be a better option, because you have a fixed amount of commission that you're paying, and you know that's the only thing that you're going to be paying, and you're not paying back and forth every time you're buying and selling. So it just depends on what kind of trading you're doing. And Wealthsimple only charges for US stocks. That's correct. So when you're buying and selling Canadian stocks, it's commission free and your money is not being converted back and forth. So Wealthsimple is a great platform to use if you're trading Canadian stocks or securities.
I see a good question here. I think Sister Sameena can relate to this. I just found out my stock I bought is not Sharia compliant. What should I do?
I know you're laughing because actually I do want to say something about this. So yeah, alhamdulillah, like after learning about Sharia compliance from you, Sister Ayesha, I did sell actually almost all of my stock portfolio, and that's okay because alhamdulillah, like I just decided that, you know what, I'm doing this. Again, it's I don't want to say it's play money, it's real money, but it's for fun. I don't need it. It's just like extra. But alhamdulillah, like I just sold everything off. I did well, alhamdulillah. But what I'm going to do now is I'm really going to look like further into this Sharia compliance and really try to understand better what my options are. And like the questions are, being asked now from the Imam and also from other people here, like, okay, so where can we find some good Canadian companies that, yield dividends that are Sharia compliant? Like, I guess as a community, I think we're all at a point where we want to learn more about it. So maybe that's the next frontier, we're getting educated about it. But yeah, like if we can get rid of it, it's just like, if you have an extra investment property, and that you bought it with a mortgage, well, you don't really need the extra investment. So just get rid of it. So I remember like just, Surah Baqarah is very clear about interest. And so like, if we can avoid interest, if we can avoid the extra, let's do it. There's going to be more barakah in our life. I'm very committed to this belief that I know that Allah's going to put barakah in other parts of our lives if we didn't get it in the money part. So anyway, inshallah, all for the best. What's the other questions here? Can we have more than one TFSA? Oh, I guess we could, right? It just depends on the actual, the threshold limits.
Yeah, so you can have several TFSA accounts. You can even have several TFSA accounts with one broker, as long as the amount that you're contributing to all of those accounts total doesn't exceed your contribution room. Otherwise, you'd be charged, a CRA will charge you 1% for every month that you hold that extra contribution in your TFSA account. And that works with any accounts. You can have several accounts. Some people will choose to have a self-directed TFSA and a managed TFSA. So part of their money is managed, part of it is self-directed, but it still stays within the TFSA umbrella.
There's a question on Norbit's Gambit.
So Norbit's Gambit is an alternative to exchanging your money. So you would purchase a Canadian ETF. The most common one for this method is DLR.to. It's an ETF that tracks the currency rate, exchange rate. So it's the ETF that doesn't fluctuate much because the conversion rate doesn't fluctuate much. So you would buy DLR.to, you would contact your broker and they would journal it over to DLR.u.to, which is the Canadian version. They're both listed on the TSX, but one is the Canadian dollar version and one is the US dollar. Once you have that DLR.u.to, you can then sell that and you would then get US dollars. So with Questrade specifically, you'd only be paying the commission to sell the ETF. Buying ETFs is free. So you'd be paying $9.95 to sell the ETF, and then you get your US dollars. Whereas when you're converting your money, if you're converting $1,000, you're paying a $20 fee for it. So the only downside of journaling over converting your funds is the time frame. So it takes 2 business days for your DLR.to to settle, and then 1 to 2 business days to journal it over. So you need to be okay with not trading with that money for 3 to 4 business days.
Okay, actually somebody has their hand up, but I can't see it. I don't know if they want to say something or they want to write something. See something, say something. So whoever has their hand up, you can feel free to speak or write.
Hi. First, I just wanted to say thank you for I'm just so excited to join this group, and I've been on it for a couple of weeks. I'm one of those very quiet people, but super excited behind closed doors. So in addition to saying Jazakallah khair to all of you, I did have one question, which is during this dip, I'm like super excited because I keep checking and everything just keeps decreasing. So I'm like, yes, finally I'm gonna buy something, but I'm like so confused as to which way to go. I'm leaning towards possibly buying, trading with Tesla, but kind of waiting for it to go under the 600 and maybe 500 or maybe 400 eventually. But my question to you guys is, what is on your wish list right now? Like, which stock are you particularly watching? Maybe if you can give me 1 or 2 that you're kind of checking every day to see how low it goes.
I have a couple on my wish list. And the thing is, everything's on sale. You're right, Sarah. Everything is on sale. And I'm just worried the same thing. Is there going to be a bigger sale? So I have set my price targets for those, but I'm keeping an eye on it. I'm making sure that I'm not getting in too early. I still think that they might go down, but I could be wrong. It's not going up. So once it dips, you start seeing the uptick, that's when I'll get into the stock. What am I looking into? I think I'm looking into Vuzi right now and WYY. Those are 2. There's several actually. I can't think of them off my head right now. But Tesla is also one of them, yes. But yeah, Tesla in the 500s would be quite nice. And it might just go there.
Okay, so there's somebody else with but see, I don't know their names, but it's somebody with IP iPhone. Do you want to say something, IP iPhone? I don't know. I know your code. Okay, there you are.
All right. Okay, yes, I'm from Mississauga. Jazakallah for this nice seminar. I have a question that you said that in tax-free saving account, CRA doesn't like frequent activity. So what is called like a short-term activity? Is it like month, 2 month? You said that tax implication or something. So can you say about that?
So there isn't a specific amount. Like I can't tell you that this is where the CRA cross line says, okay, you're going to be taxed on this. There's no way of finding out. If you're buying the stock and you're holding it for a long period of time, or you're trading it occasionally, maybe once or twice a month, I don't see that being a problem. But again, it just depends on what CRA looks at it as. I personally, in my TFSA account, I traded maybe once or twice a week, and I haven't been flagged. So that's just my personal experience, but it completely depends. I mean, you can contact CRA and they might be able to tell you a little more information on that, just so you understand, so you don't end up in that situation.
Okay, Jazakallah. IP, I for Ishaq and P for Patel. So I have IP. Jazakallah.
I have a question. Do you provide some investing services or consulting for that?
I don't.
Actually, I have to say something about that because, again, from my years of experience in stock trading, I have found that anybody who offers advice, it has always some other intention behind it. It's always been like, you know, I don't want to say the gender, but anyways, like some person who will always like say, okay, well, you know what, if I can give you this advice, you know, I can take your, you know, your money and invest it in some mutual funds, and you know, we offer this XYZ services. I personally like to just manage my own stuff. Like, I don't want other people to manage it, because I've also seen examples, and it's my own personal experience again, where, you know, some family members have, you know, lost loads in the stock market, or actually mutual funds, I should say, or, you know, doing real estate with other people who, you know, say certain things. But again, like the whole premise of, you know, investing, like, we don't really know the future. We don't really know, you know, how best, you know, the options are presented to us. But I really wanted to make sure that whoever we were going to, you know, interview today, that we make sure that we also don't qualify ourselves as expert advisors in any capacity. We can share experience, we can share our thoughts, we can share the trends, we can share basic facts about what we know, but we cannot give advice. And I think it would be unfair for anybody to claim that they are an expert in the stock market. And really, nobody is an expert. Nobody can really tell you which way something can go. Like, as you saw, the Tesla stock, it started just under $5, you know, 1 year, and then it's up to over $800. And you know, we see spikes like that, and people can, you know, lose and gain very quickly. So it is really an exercise in your intention, and also in your capacity to take risks. And as Sister Ayesha and Sister Zainab have alluded to, you know, a lot of skills and trying to understand, you know, that market, the market awareness, and watching and seeing all those trends and reading them quite well. It does take time. We have some more questions. Do we have, is it IP iPhone again? Sorry. Do we have any more questions?
I did want to mention one thing, which is the practice account. So if you are new to trading and you're not familiar with the platform, like when I started at Questrade, I only started investing my money after I started working there, because I had a good understanding of how the platform works. I know how to quickly make a trade to get out or get in. So if you're new, you don't understand how the platform works, you can take a look to see if your broker offers you a practice account, and it's a paper trading account. So they give you fake money, and you can use that platform to trade, buy, sell, hold different stocks and ETFs, and kind of understand how the platform works. Because if you can't make real money with your practice account, you probably won't be able to make money with your real accounts. That's always a good first step if you're completely new to the trading world.
What about Bitcoin, trading in Bitcoins?
A very popular subject. I'm not familiar with Bitcoin or cryptocurrency.
Okay, thank you.
I can tell you, brother, that there is a huge range of opinion about cryptocurrencies, and again, for the purpose of today's discussion, we decided that, you know, we're not going to give any advice or thoughts about it, because it could be a whole session unto itself. But we can say that there are definitely ranges of opinion on it, and it's best that people at this time, and again, we're at a kind of a brink of more information available to the community, so perhaps it needs to be more research done before we can elaborate on that. But great question. And of course, with the example and the hypothetical character we gave for Omar, we would tell Omar to avoid cryptocurrencies. There was a good question in the chat from Asma asking, what is the difference between mutual funds and ETFs? And again, ETF being a collection of stocks. What are your thoughts, Ayesha or Zainab?
like Zainab to take this?
I think you mentioned there was some information discussed earlier. Sorry, just give me a moment here.
There's a link.
Yeah, I know there's a link in your document, I think, about that.
And there's a link, BB posted the link in the chat.
Yeah, so the overview between the two is that they're both a mix of different assets. With mutual funds, from my understanding, is when companies do invest in mutual funds, they consist of a very large quantity of different shares. I mean, if you contact your broker and you ask them to let you know what stocks are being invested in that specific mutual fund, they probably won't be able to tell you because there's so many. Whereas ETFs are easier to track when it comes to whether they're Sharia compliant because it doesn't consist of as many stocks. With mutual funds, it's just a larger basket.
Okay, there was a brother who had posted a link to a really cool document. Brother Sajjad Ashraf, he sent a list of halal Canadian stocks that pay quarterly dividends. We're having trouble kind of downloading it, and I'm wondering if Brother Sajjad, if you wouldn't mind sending it to us in a PDF, I don't know, if, or some other format as part of the link. I don't know if he's still online, but anyways.
The link is not open.
I was able to open it.
I see it open on my end as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just curious because, as you know, because I sold off all my portfolio, I'm curious about these. So if you wouldn't mind sending it to me, Zainab or Ayesha, maybe after the show, that would be great. Thank you. All right. And then there was a great question. Somebody asked, where was that? Sorry, I'm not a techie person. I'm getting there, hang on. Okay, Brother Majid asked, how do we get the practice account? So that I know for sure. Like, so let's say, for example, for Questrade, if you want the practice account, you just have to apply to open an account with Questrade, and then they have amazing tutorials. So you can just, click on the link and they'll actually show you how it's done. They'll walk you through all the different steps and they'll show you on your screen. So it's just after you actually create an account with them that they can do it. And you're not obligated either. So let's say, for example, you practice it, you really don't like it, it's not for you, and you get all anxious or whatever, like you can just close it. You are not obligated to pay them anything. And somebody's asking, oh, Rubina, I assume that index funds are non-Sharia compliant. Ayesha, would you be interested to answer Sister Rubina?
I'm not quite sure, Zainab.
I'm not too familiar with index funds. I think it would depend on what index. I believe there are some index funds that are Sharia compliant. You just have to take a look at the ticker symbol and see. If you have some examples, then you can let us know and I can check the Zoya app to see if they are available.
Okay, that's great. And I have to also say it's thanks to Sister Rubina that we have our guest panelists here today. Thank you, Sister Rubina. And I advise Omar to visit Ross Cameron. Oh, I don't know who that is. I guess that's some other.
I think he's advising our friend Omar, who's getting into it, to get into this researching and downloading the free book.
Oh.
Okay. Oh, sorry, can't find the link to the PDF document. Oh, maybe we need to resend your famous document again. Wow, it's like so popular. We hope that that's lots of sadaqah being given to KMA. All right, so Brother Yusuf has a question. Sorry, Brother Yusuf, you've had your hand up for a while and I only saw it now.
No, that's okay. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for this seminar. So I'm trying this for the first time. I haven't done this talk. I heard about it 40 years ago when I was in elementary school. I'm from India, part of Hyderabad. Yeah, so one of my friends' family, they used to invest 40 years ago. The practice account, do we need to have a broker for the practice account?
Yeah, so the practice accounts are offered by your broker. So you'd have to create an account with, for example, for Questrade, you can just create a user ID and a password. You don't even have to create an actual account with them, and you can have that practice account, and it's valid for 90 days. Once the 90 days are over, your account is basically reset, and then they give you a new user ID and password. So you can continue trading in this practice account for as long as you'd like.
But we don't have to pay the broker, right? Like for the practice account?
No, I know that with Questrade you don't. I'm not too sure with other brokers. You'd have to check with them, but from my understanding, practice accounts you don't need to. There are no fees involved.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks.
No problem.
Okay, so I am looking down at the list of participants and I don't see any more hands up. And I'm just going to check and see who's writing to us on YouTube. I think we're good. Or on, yeah, so I think we're good. Okay. Yep, okay, good. So YouTube confirms that there's no more questions on it. Okay, good. And now Investopedia, now that's something new. Is that an Islamic forum?
So that's like the Wikipedia. It's like the Wikipedia of investments. I use that to look at a lot of. There's a lot of information on there. It's a really great resource if you want to look at what are stocks, what are ETFs. They have really great explanations for it. It's a really great resource.
They also have a practice account. I didn't know that.
Cool. Air Canada Halal. I believe a lot of the major airlines are not Sharia compliant.
Okay, well, it's now 9:39, so we've had a lovely hour or so together, folks, and I think we're just going to close up. Did anybody have any last questions for our panelists before we say salam and have a good evening? I think we're great. Okay, well, thank you both again, sisters Ayesha and Zainab, and again on behalf of the Canada Muslim Association, thanks to everyone for joining us this evening. Please do share your wealth with the KMA, and also, you know, please do also take these tips and advice with care as you explore the stock markets and enjoy your trades. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to us. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Have a good evening.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me out. I have to remove myself.